everyone, Gaara here and welcome to another episode of Deck Analysis. Today I'm going to talk about Unite the Murlocs, arguably the third strongest quest in the game. So why is it still so bad and seems completely unplayable? I'm going to talk about this in this video today, so without further ado, let's get right into it. I have Unite the Murlocs as the third strongest quest in the game behind the Mage quest and the Warrior quest. I think it is slightly stronger than the nerfed Rogue quest, or let's say the Priest or the Druid quest. It is definitely much better than the Hunter, Paladin or Warlock quest. Why is the third strongest quest still so far away from being playable than, let's say, the Warrior or the Mage quest? First, I wanna talk about the overall power level of the quest, and I would like to compare it to the Hunter quest. The Unite the Murloc quest is much easier to complete than the Hunter quest because you have to summon Murlocs from any cost. So you can pretty much try to build a powerful deck and you can fit in all the good Murlocs or any Murloc you want, and you can use spells like Call in the Finishers, which count as 4 Murlocs towards the quest. So even though you have to play 3 more Murlocs than you need for the Hunter quest, it is still much easier to complete this quest in comparison. So we could do stuff like play Murloc Tidehunter on turn 2, which counts as 2 Murlocs right after you play the quest on turn 1. And then you can coin out Call in the Finishers into another Call in the Finishers, and then you already played or summoned 10 Murlocs. So you could play the Megafin right after on turn 5 and fill up your entire hand with Murlocs. Seems quite powerful. Obviously this is not very inconsistent and it will not happen very often, but this is just an example of how a perfect curve could look like in a quest Murloc deck. And another thing that I think is more powerful is just the overall minions, the overall power level of minions. Murlocs are much more powerful on average than random 1-drops that you have to squeeze in the Hunter quest deck just towards the Hunter quest. And 1-drops will just get weaker later in the game compared to the Murloc quest, because you can play 3 mana Murlocs and 5 mana Murlocs, whatever Murlocs you want, just to complete the quest. And you can choose which Murlocs you prefer. You can play a bunch of cheaper Murlocs or like more expensive Murlocs. You have freedom besides that you are limited to playing Murlocs, but you have the freedom in what Murlocs you want to play. And on top of it, the quest got 2 cards in the recent expansion that are great for that deck. Ice Fishing, that helps you draw 2 Murlocs. If you compare it to Arcane Intellect, which is a very popular mage card, you can essentially draw 2 cards for 2 mana, which is quite powerful. And the Murloc, another 2 mana Murloc, which you can also add in your deck if you want to do so. So you can really exclude all the bad Murlocs from the Murloc deck. And the final thing that the Murloc quest is superior over the Hunter quest is the quest reward. I think the Megafin is much stronger than the Queen Canassa, just because it fills your entire hand with random Murlocs, and random Murlocs in average are pretty decent. And the Queen Canassa just gives you pretty much a 5 mana 8/8 on board, which the Megafin is as well. You're really relying on heavy draw RNG afterwards to just chain Raptors, but Raptors are just free 2s, so your deck is pretty much filled with 1-drops and Raptors. Like, this will not help you win a game, but the Megafin can really help you set up like multiple boards to just, you know, get a win through that. And maybe you even run Bloodlust in your deck so you can refill your board quickly and, you know, just kill your opponent with Bloodlust. So better minions that you can play in the deck, a better quest reward, easier to complete quest reward. You got support from the most recent expansion. It is the third strongest quest overall. So why is it still so bad? The number one problem is pretty much the same as with the Hunter quest. The quest costs 1 mana. I think if the quest would cost 0 mana, a serious chance at becoming playable. Very far from being a tier 1 deck, but it would at least be playable. The problem is, same as with the Hunter quest or most quests just in general, is you're pretty much out to lose to aggro because you have to play the quest on turn 1. But not just that, it's the whole mulligan process. you want to keep the quest versus control decks and mulligan it away against aggressive decks. But pre-nerf we had the state of the game where if you faced a druid, it was a 50% chance that it is aggro druid and 50% chance that it is jade druid. So you can't know that except you faced that opponent before. So it is pretty much a gamble at keeping the quest. It has nothing to do with skill. If you have never faced your opponent and the popularity of both archetypes is pretty much split, then you kind of have to just gamble. If you keep the quest and you play turn 1 and it turned out to be aggro, you just lose the game. And this is really a big flaw in the overall quest mechanic for every quest. And the lower curve quest decks rely way more on having board control than the slower quests. Like the quest mage, for example, and the quest warrior don't suffer from that too much because they don't want to play any 1-drops anyways most of the time. The way how they play the deck is usually very slow and controlish, so you can really afford to play the quest on turn 1 in most cases. Even though it still hurts against aggressive decks, you can still come back. The warrior had the Vorex back in the days, pre-nerf, on turn 2 to, you know, get rid of the board and start controlling the board. The mage has the Frostbolt, you know, or the Doomsayers, and then go with Frost Nova and so forth. But a curve deck that heavily relies on your minions in fighting the opponent's minion. If I play the quest on turn 1 and then you go for, like, let's say a Swashbuckler into patches, I pretty much lost the game. I will never ever seize board control again after that, and that is really the biggest weakness. So since Blizzard clearly made 2 cards which are very good for the Shaman quest, I don't know if they printed these cards specifically for the Shaman quest, so they wanted to give it some love, but as you guys can see, even though Shaman kinda has like all the tools to build a quest Shaman deck, even if Blizzard would design more cards in the future for the Shaman quest or most of the other quests, like even the Hunter quest has gotten like more 1-drops, neutral 1-drops that you can play, or the Prince Kalasev on turn 2. The Warlock quest has gotten more discard cards. Those quests will always be unplayable because of the biggest weakness or the biggest design flaw of the quest, that it costs 1 mana, and if you play now a 1 mana quest, you will lose to if your opponent plays an aggressive deck by default, and that is a big issue. So the second biggest problem is definitely the overall power level of the quest reward. It is very difficult in general to complete the quests, and the overall power level of the quest rewards is very unbalanced between the quests. For example, if the mage completes the quest and you assemble all pieces, you pretty much won the game, no matter what kind of deck your opponent plays, if you get to that point. It is pretty much the same for warrior. If a warrior has the Soul for Us with the Ragnar Seer power, you will pretty much win the game if you get to that point. Except if you're playing against a Razakus priest, but that's a whole different story. If you complete the quest with the Unite the Murlocs or with the Hunter quest, we don't win the game. We just have like a Bittertide Hydra with no drawback, with a little bit of a upside. That is really not worth the investment of the quest and building an entire deck around it. But in my opinion, the Megafin is much stronger than the Queen Canassa, because you really, just think about it, you play a 5 mana 8/8 that draws you up to 9 cards, or 10 cards if your hand is completely empty, which is nuts if you think about it. Insane value, so that would be a very powerful card. So against control decks, the Megafin isn't too bad. But I think even though he's so powerful, against the currently most powerful control decks like the Razakus Priest or Jade Druid, I don't think even the Megafin is good enough, because the Priest has so many ways in dealing with multiple boards and one big threat like the Megafin, and they will just kill you with the Anduin. Those are the 2 main things. So the power level of the quest will never go up in the future because of, you know, how the quest works. The card will not get changed. So even if we get more Murlocs and more support for the quest, we will still not see this quest being playable because of the design flaw of it costing 1 mana, it being a curved deck, and you always lose to any aggressive decks. So it doesn't matter what kind of meta we have with what kind of aggressive decks, whatever. Murloc Paladin got nerfed, Pirate Warrior got nerfed, but they just got replaced by Elemental Rogue, Prince Kalisev Zoo. You will still lose to these kind of decks. And this will always be the case with the curving out quest decks. So that's it for today's deck analysis video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another video. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment and subscribe. Also make sure to check out my daily streams, link to that is in the description. Let me also know in the comments what kind of deck analysis you wanna see next week. Thanks so much for watching once again, and see you guys tomorrow. Peace.